Morning. This is Jacqueline Tacarante from T Media. I am here in my home in Staten Island. I have a beautiful mural painted right behind me by a Colombian amazing muralist, Lena Montoya. Today, we're actually going to interview two folks. But before we do, the reason why I started this whole community corner segment, we had our first episode on Sunday. We were able to interview a former financial advisor, Ryan Ludgate. We also were able to interview Mike from Techie Geek. He gave us some really great tips and tricks for small businesses on the security side. And of course, many of you, if you've been quarantined and you've seen Netflix special Pandemic, we were able to interview Dr. Jacob Glanville, who is the CEO of Distributed Bio, give us a lot of information regarding the coronavirus. So I'm a communicator through and through. I mentioned this earlier on my personal Facebook page. And one way of me relieving stress is actually communicating even thoroughly and more to our community in the small business world, especially here on Staten Island. So today we will be hosting a few more of these with different elected officials, city council members, especially people in leadership that can direct us. And Small Business Development Center is going to be coming on the next week or so when we get more information. But today we have Christina Gatteri, who's going to be joining us. She is a certified CFP and CRPC and mompreneur, and she's a financial advisor. So Christina, are you there? Are you joining us? All right, looks like Christina is going to chime in 2 seconds. Let's just hold off on that. Christina is a financial advisor, like I mentioned. And give me 1 second, guys, technology here. But while we wait, let's actually move on to our next guest while we make sure on the tech side that we're good to go. So our next guest is an amazing community leader, supporter. First, I want to give a special shout out to Senator Diane Savino here in New York State. She's present. Like, let's just put it that way. She's present, so present that even yesterday afternoon when I was checking the mail, which, by the way, I'm still thankful that our government is still open in that regards to get updates. But in yesterday's mail, I received, I guess I should cover this, I received one of the very first pieces of information. Oh, there we go. Hey, Christina. Hi, how are
Hi
you?
there. I'm so sorry about that. My
Oh, it's
power outage. I had a power outage, but I'm
Oh,
back.
okay. It's all right. Well, you look
Oh my
fabulous. Well,
goodness.
welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're gonna switch gears, everyone that's following Facebook Live, but that's okay. Christina, first off, thank you so much for joining us. I know you were recently featured on ABC News. You're an amazing financial planner.
Thank you.
And on Sunday, when we did our first segment, you gave us some really good tips and tricks. But let's start off with who you are and what you do, because I think it's really important for people to understand. I'm really only trying to bring experts in their field to talk. I'm really more of a moderator. I'm not an expert financial planner. Clearly, I need to hire you. So talk to us about what you do and what's going on, hon.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a certified financial planner. I've been in a financial advisory role for a little over 12 years now. So I started as a financial advisor in January of 2008, right at the start of the last financial crisis that we experienced. And I work with a lot of young families because
Okay.
I have a young family myself. So
Oh, we just switched over to me.
able to relate to young families very well. I work with a lot of small businesses. My office is based here in Rhode Island, but you know, in this virtual world, we're able to connect all over. So, so that's what I do. I try to focus on helping people know what next steps to take when things feel a little uncertain.
Yeah, sure, sure. And I wish I could do this. Like, yep, yes, Jessica, our project manager, she's letting us know that there's power outages that are happening. So We're going to try to ask you a few more questions, and
Sure.
if not, we'll go straight into Brandon. But let's talk about the trends that you're seeing right now on the
Yeah.
financial planning side, so people are aware of what to be on the lookout for.
Mhm. So on the small business side, we're starting to see more information, and I know your page, Jacqueline, has been wonderful about keeping people up to date about what resources are going to be available for business continuity. And so what I'm talking with my small business owners about is, what's your business continuity plan? If you were in business back in 2008, what did you do to make it through that financial crisis? Because right now, business owners need to be working on their basics. What's their business plan? And how did they survive back then? What are the bare essentials they need to make sure they can sustain and not only have a business for themselves on the other side of this, but have a business for their employees to come back to on the other side?
Now, let me ask you a question. What
Mhm.
happens if a small business, like for instance, myself, there's a resurgence of small businesses on Staten Island. There's some that have been here from early
Mhm.
2000s, early 1980s, and then there's some that just started 5, 6 years ago. What if they didn't have a continuity plan? Like, is that something that you can help with? What would you suggest
Mhm.
for them to do?
I would suggest they go back to whatever plan they put together on day one, because they would have needed some plan in place to just get that business off the ground to begin with. And whatever that initial plan was, now's the time to go back and reflect. Are we still following that plan? Were we able to grow from there? But now that we've hit this point where growth is not something that we're exploring at this moment, go back to basics, go back to that original business plan, and let's see what from that we can still use. And if there are things from there that need modification, then we work together to find out what that modification needs to be and where we can pull resources from to make all of it happen.
Oh, that's fabulous. You had mentioned, so was it Saturday or Sunday? I had asked you. I was like, what would be some tips you would give? And you really sparked an interest and intrigued not only me but my entire staff. You said people really need to look at what happened in 2008.
Yeah.
And I even went even further back. I told my staff, I want us to do research of what happened in the 1987 stock market crash. I want to know what's going on in the 2008 market crash, like what happens. And can you expand on that just so people that
Yeah.
are watching understand why you mentioned that? Because it was so intriguing to me, because when you're in the middle of all this kind of chaos happening outside of your house, it's really important to focus. And that's why we've been using the hashtag focus and conquer, because it's like you got to get through the trenches. So can you expand on that reference?
Definitely. Back in 2008, we know that small businesses suffered because consumers were scared.
Hmm.
And it was different in 2008. We didn't have a financial crisis that was really forcing us to stay in our homes. But really, the impact was similar in that consumers didn't know when they were going to be impacted. We didn't know when the next round of layoffs was going to come. And when the consumer gets scared, we hold on to our dollars. And it's difficult for the small business owners to sustain a business when consumers aren't spending the money. So when I say go back to 2008, I say, first of all, realize that consumers are going to be scared for a long time. And now we're also seeing that because we're dealing with, really life and death situations, we're seeing our government step in and closing businesses down so that there are things that we can't do, even if we chose um, to make a decision with our dollar. There are things that we don't have the options to do right now. So when I say look back to 2008, business owners need to take a look at how long consumers took to open up their pocketbook again.
Yeah.
And that's what they base their plan on, as far as how long it's going to take for them to recover and really get back to where they were before. And I think that's especially important because so much of the resources that are being made available to small businesses are coming in the form of loans. I noticed in New York, you posted that there are some grant programs out there. So far in Rhode Island, we've only seen options for loans for small businesses.
Yeah.
And if a small business is going to take on a loan at this time, you need to be really confident about your plan to rebuild your business for when those payments come due.
Yeah, it's so interesting you're saying that, because our team, aside from the situation, the first thing that we're looking at, because we're a small business ourselves,
Mhm.
one of the first things that we were looking at immediately was creating and starting to be proactive. So we started putting together a business reboot kind of packet that we'll be distributing to small businesses in the next 2 weeks. It's kind of a free business plan of what to do years ago. So I totally get it, but it's funny because people are telling me, "Oh, Jacqueline, just get a loan." I'm like, my business is 100% cash positive, but that's because I'm in strategically. I wanted to make sure that I didn't owe any loans, and so now I have to start rethinking and collaborating of how am I going to sustain my business for my staff and et cetera, et cetera. So that's really good information.
Yeah.
One last question, because I think people get nervous when they talk about financial planners. I'm not going to lie. I never even thought about working with a financial planner until recently, till I had my second beautiful baby girl, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to make sure that everybody is set up for college and blah, 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 blah. So can you talk to us just a little bit of advice on the difference between individual financial planning and then small business financial planning, just to kind of demystify the whole we're scared to talk to a financial planner?
Absolutely. To me, there are technical differences between working with families and working with small businesses on the numbers side, right?
Okay.
But so much more of the work that I do is really more so in the realm of counseling. When I have a meeting with a client, whether it's a family or a small business, we're talking about, here are some numbers, here are some money things that are happening that we should pay attention to. Here's a recommendation that I have for you. But the rest of the time is, so what's going on?
Yeah.
What's making you feel stressed? Because when we feel stressed and uncertain, sometimes we make rash decisions.
Yeah.
So if you are curious about working with a financial advisor, the first piece of advice I give to everybody is interview a few. Find one that you feel is actually listening to you. Financial advisors certainly have a stigma of being salespeople just looking for the next commission. And if you get that vibe from a financial advisor, then that's not the right one for you. You need to converse with financial advisors, find someone you really feel like is listening to you and is going to understand the goals you want to achieve, not an advisor that's going to force their goals on you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like dating. I'm dating right now,
Yes.
trying to find the next partner that I can marry. It's my husband.
Yeah,
I told him,
it's
I said,
serious business. Financial advising is very emotional for people.
and it's overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. It's very overwhelming because you want to make the right decision for long term. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Christina. Be on standby because we're about to actually. I wanted to introduce our second guest. Many of you, briefly, that you chimed in. Sorry, guys, I have a little itch. So Senator Diane Savino, many of you, especially here on Staten Island, have this love for her because you know that she is present, so present that literally yesterday, for those of you that chimed in earlier, but yesterday I was able to open up my mail. Thank you again for the government for keeping mail service delivery happening. But I received this amazing piece of literature, y'all. And the reason why I say it's amazing is because from a marketing and PR standpoint, it literally takes about a week and a half to design something, print something, distribute it, go through the mail, all the channels that be. And so the fact that I received this means that she's on top of her A game, and I'm all about right now. Trust me, I'm watching all the leadership happening, not just on Staten Island, but in New York State and even on a national level. I think it's extremely important. I won't get too much into politics because why? That's not my role. So I'm going to stay in my lane. But I do want to properly introduce an amazing, amazing Deputy Chief of Staff, Brandon Patterson. He is on the helms of what's happening here on Staten Island. He's a true community leader and advocate. And I'm so glad you're able to join us this morning, Brandon. Thank you so, so, so much.
Of course. Good to see you in this in these weird times that we're having.
I know. Just a little weird, but that's okay. We're just flexing our social media muscles. That's all right. So I want to talk about, like, can you let everybody know what your role is with Senator Diane Savino's office? This, my friend, is amazing.
Yeah. So, when we started printing that a couple of weeks ago, and information was just moving so quickly. So, like you led off, it takes about a week, for our production services to print that stuff and get that information correct. And we wanted to make sure that before things got too bad and we had enough information, we got it out. So you're going to start seeing probably most families in the North Shore on Staten Island this week are going to be getting that in their mailbox. I know we have some posters that we tried getting out at small businesses and community centers and vertical buildings. I don't know if we got all of them out that we wanted to, but we're going to try and get them out one way or another as we're working remotely. Just, the more information, the better. Keep washing your hands and all that stuff and social distancing that we've been seeing. So,
absolutely. So, you guys, one of the things that I love about the senator's office is y'all are out and about in the community helping small businesses. What are some of the best practices that you would say right now? We'll talk about government resources in a little bit,
Yep.
but let's talk about just some best practices for the community and small businesses.
Right. So, I think let me just sort of pivot and connect the two. I think what we've been doing is we're getting information from the governor's office and the executive about what new guidances are. Yeah. So we just posted on the senator's Twitter and Facebook yesterday. And please, if you're in Staten Island, follow all of the elected officials, all of their Twitter, Facebook, Instagram pages, because we're all sharing information as soon as we get it. But, if you're a small business owner, if you're a bar or restaurant, there are new guidances for your liquor license so that you can sell liquor at a curbside pickup. Interesting times. So, we want to make sure that you're able to continue to succeed. If you are having a construction site, Department of Buildings, we didn't put that out yet, but they are available. Things to do with equipment. Department of Labor, if you work in a restaurant and you were laid off, the governor did waive the 7-day period. So if you're unemployed now, you can get that benefit immediately or the next day. It depends on the situation. But if you have questions, please email Senator Savino. You can go on our website, Savino, or our email is savino@nysenate.gov. If you email her, we have staff and herself that monitor it. And then it gives you the list of all of our staff members. We're responding to messages on social media, into her direct messages. You can probably find all of our social media on her page too. So just please reach out to us. And all of the electeds are talking, all of staff are talking. We're trying to get information out there as much as possible.
Absolutely. One of the things that I admire and I love, Senator Diane Savino, anytime there's a press conference or even before a press conference, she immediately is posting on social media. To me, that's leadership. And right now, everybody's on social media, and especially on Staten Island. One of the reasons why people keep asking me, why are you doing this only on Facebook? Because most of the community on Staten Island, the mass, from what we've seen from the events that we've partnered with, beautiful cultural institution groups like Snug Harbor Cultural Center, Botanical Garden, with over 58 million views on social media, we see that people day in and day out are on Facebook here on Staten Island. So we're going to continue to post and do live feeds on Facebook page. Can we also talk about, some of the other resources that your offices can offer? And the reason why I bring that up is when I had first started my company, I think I mentioned this to you, for those that are following us, when I first started my company, Steve Grillo, vice president over at SIEDC, had mentioned that I need to apply for my MWBE, which is the Minority Women Business Enterprise Certificate, and I needed additional information. So he also gave me the information for Senator Diane Savino's office, and Brandon Patterson was the one that picked up the phone, and he walked me through this process. So I want to talk about what other services that the senator's office has to offer during this time, aside from information regarding Department of Labor. Are there any other services that we need to be made aware of during this time that you guys offer?
We're still working as if this didn't happen. So if you have questions regarding if you're a NYCHA resident and something's going on, there's a repair that needs to be made. I don't know. I don't think we've gotten guidance on how quickly they're doing that, but please reach out. National Grid and Con Ed, we deal with them every day. They're suspending shutoffs. I would just say continue to ask questions as you normally would. I think sometimes we have weeks where people are calling us every 5 seconds and some weeks where they're not. This is what government's here to do. We're here to answer your questions. No question is really too silly to ask, especially in this time. So if you have questions about what stores are open, Staten Island Live, I just saw put up a great article. The mall is suspending hours, right? We try to be that one-stop shop for people for information, if it's government or non-government. And if we can't answer the question, we're going to get you to the people that can. I mean, we don't necessarily answer all questions related to federal government. It's not our wheelhouse, but we'll have you connected to Congressman Max Rose's office in a very short time. So listen, the great thing about Staten Island and our elected officials is we all work really well together. All the staffs work really well together. Keep following us, and again, keep pinging all of us on social media if you have questions. No question right now is too big or too small. There are government offices that are still opening or still operating. So we may not get the answer immediately, but if you have a question related to a permit with Department of Buildings, like I alluded to earlier, we'll do our best to get you answers on things.
Sure. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. If you could just stand by. We have a couple of pieces of information that we want to distribute. I look alive right now, but I'm a little exhausted because we've been trying to keep up with all of the press conferences from the executive to the governor's office to the mayor's office. So we try to, most people don't have the time to sit for the whole hour and then extract. So our job is we're really trying to extract as much information as we can for the small business community. So the first thing that we're going to put up is a slide about some IRS and tax updates. Yesterday, Treasurer Secretary noted that taxpayers can delay paying their income taxes on as much as $1 million for up to 90 days. So they're still expanding on that. So we haven't put out the links yet just because they're still expanding on what exactly that means specifically for small businesses, whether you're an LLC or whether you're a sole proprietorship. So we'll have additional information on that later. Ordinarily, individual income taxpayers must submit their tax returns by April 15th. They are again giving a 90-day extension, but you do need to speak with your financial planner, your accountant, or if it's readily available to you, you can go to irs.gov to gather more information. The postponement on payments applies to federal returns. Again, you need to double check your state's tax deadlines to see if there are any delays. So again, this was all released yesterday from the executive. So we're waiting to hear back on what exactly that entails because there's so many details that haven't been distributed. There's just a lot of announcements that are coming out. So again, on our Facebook page with jmtmedia.nyc, we're trying to post as much information as we can. We're trying to decipher it also for y'all because for me, if I was sitting on the other end, I'm like, this is great information. It's 20 pages long. I need it down to brass taxes. So we're trying to get it down to brass taxes for you. Our next slide that we have here, some other additional updates are government assistance. Yesterday, the Trump administration discussed that there would be a 1.2 trillion in spending, including direct payments of $1,000 to Americans within the next 2 weeks because they're trying to help curb some of the economic impact. And so as of this morning, ABC News and Fox News reported that they're still trying to solidify what exactly that means and how long that will take. Because even though checks, quote unquote, will be distributed in 2 weeks, it really can take anywhere from up 4 to 6 weeks and even sometimes as long as 8 weeks to get checks distributed. So I'm sure that they're trying to sort all those details out about that rollout plan. There's also a proposal in the works for $300 billion for small business loans. Like we just discussed with Christina, some businesses are starting to look at small business loans as their leverage to continue business. But again, we recommend that you speak with the financial planner advisor, just like Christina from Innovative Planning Partners. They're also looking at $200 billion in stabilization funds and $250 billion in cash payments to do a second round of checks. So again, this can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, if not even longer. So let's make sure that we, as much as information is coming in, we're trying to distribute this as fast as we can to y'all. So what I wanted to also do is let y'all know that next week, either next week or the latter part of this week, We will have a representative from the Staten Island Small Business Development Center. They are part of the umbrella for small business administration offices joining us. We're also going to have a representative from a bank, a financial institution, talk to us because certainly you do not want to just be old school, pull out your money and put it under your mattress. There's new insurance regulations with FDIC. And so it's really important that we have other experts. So we're trying to coordinate all of that. We're going to conclude our segment. First, I want to thank everyone that joined us. Christina, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know as we are getting everything together and distributing information, it's really important that we stay connected on a social level. So I appreciate y'all getting up this morning. Christina, I'll be contacting you about my financial planning, and Brandon, I'll be calling you about next steps, what's happening at the offices. So again, everyone, please stay tuned. We'll be distributing more information. But again, thank you so much for joining us this morning, y'all.
Absolutely. No problem.
Y'all have a great one.
Take care. Be safe.
Bye.